Tier 5 units are the strongest troop in the whole entire game, and today I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know about them, and I'm going to be giving you a guide on how you actually get them. So if you are interested in getting to Tier 5 troops, and you want to do that in a much more efficient way, then please do stick around throughout this whole video. Alright, so Tier 5 are the basically complete endgame of someone's account. Once your account has Tier 5, you've basically upgraded everything to max, and there's really nothing left to do, besides fighting other players. You can see here, I don't even have Tier 5 troops yet, but I mean, what a better person to talk about them, someone who's actually trying to get them instead of someone that's had them for years. So, we're going to start off with what are Tier 5 units. Tier 5 are the most powerful troop in the game by base stats. They have the most base stats compared to any other troop. Besides March Speed, their March Speed is lower. Tier 5 units are extremely expensive to heal. In terms of training them, they're actually quite cheap compared to Tier 4 if you're pushing power. Tier 5 units equal 10 power, and they take about a day and a half worth of speed ups for 2,000 of them. And 2,000 Tier 4 takes about a day worth of speed ups, and it gives you about just under half the power. However, Tier 4 are faster and are much cheaper to heal. So for most players, honestly, if you're going to get Tier 5 units, I either recommend only using it with your best March, a March that has top tier commanders, top tier equipment, possibly is the only time you would ever use Tier 5, or filling garrisons. Or if you're crazy and you have many farm accounts, then you could consider using Tier 5 as your full murderable, but you would need a lot of farms, since Tier 5 units, a full hospital can cost 100 million of each resource, and a lot of gold, a lot of gold. Tier 5 are not cheap to heal, especially if you don't have that KVK crystal tech. So I mean, definitely getting Tier 5 is more of a higher spender thing, and using it on the field is definitely a higher spending thing. The one thing to note about Tier 5 is I still recommend having about 200 to 300,000 of them, purely because when you are doing events, like in Kingdom events, let's say Loha's Trial was here, it's not. But if I had Tier 5, I probably would have won that event, but my Tier 4 are weaker. But because I'm not getting as many 7 wins from the event, it's definitely worth using the Tier 5 to get the better score in that event. Even if you have half a March worth, you're going to score way better than if you had just a full March of Tier 4. Like I said, pushing for events like the MGE, using Tier 5 units and training them is definitely a very efficient way compared to training Tier 4. Tier 4 are very bad for power gain in comparison to Tier 5. One Tier 5 is 10 power, one Tier 4 is 4 power, and a Tier 5 isn't double the cost, it's times 1.5 the cost, so I mean, getting Tier 5 and using them like that is definitely worth it. Now let's just talk about some pre-requirements to get Tier 5. I'm not going to go too in-depth on the buildings because I already have a guide on it, but I'll gloss over it a little bit. You need City Hall 25, you need Castle level 25, you need Watchtower level 25, you need all the training buildings level 25, you need Scout Camp level 25, Tavern level 25, Wall level 25, one Lumber Mill, one Quarry, one Farm and one Gold Mine to level 25, a Hospital to level 25, the Alliance Center to level 25, and the Storehouse to level 25, and then finally, you need the Academy to level 25. Each level 25 upgrade will take one Master's Blueprint. They are not the best value, try buy them during a More Than Gems. Trust me, that's going to get you much more value. To get the Academy 25, the main upgrade to note here is actually getting your Castle to 25. All the other buildings are relatively easy in comparison. The Castle takes either a year and a half of proper Barb Fort grinding, or spending about 100,000 gems. So what I did was I grinded Barb Forts for about a year and a half. I didn't grind Barb Forts for the first 300 days of my account. Sorry. And then what I did was I ended up gemming the rest because I just got over it and I wanted those extra stats. So having the Castle at 25 is definitely your biggest mission. Either you're going to have to farm a lot of gems and rally a lot of forts, or just rally an absolute boatload of forts and just burn all your AP on forts. I was doing that for a year or so, maybe a bit like a year and 3 months, and I made almost 60 or 70,000 books, and I gemmed the rest. I think it's 85,000 books-ish to max your castle. Now, also, another thing that costs gems, but you shouldn't be gemming, is your Watchtower. Your Watchtower takes Arrows of Resistance to level up, and they're actually really easy to get. You don't need to play for a while to get those. In 2 or 3 months, you would have enough Arrows of Resistance if you played correctly to get yourself a max Watchtower. I took my Watchtower up probably about 3 weeks ago, and I've already got 2,000 more arrows, and I sold all the arrows I had before. So, I mean, getting Arrows of Resistance is super easy, and definitely shouldn't be spending your gems on it. Now, the key part is the research. I'll do a quick disclaimer before I go over everything in depth. To get Tier 5, you basically need to max every single economic research, and all the research up until your chosen troop. So let's say I'm going for archers, I need to max all this research all this research, and then the tier 5 obviously, and all the research behind it. The only thing that may not need max, which I've heard, and I'm not sure, I ended up maxing it anyways, was carriage. I'm pretty sure you probably still do need to max this to get tier 5 units. But I mean, it's not that useful, so if you want to just try and not max it and see where that goes, you could. Might save you like 3 or 4 days of speed ups. Because relatively speaking, economic tech is quite easy to upgrade. Like most economic upgrades take maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 million resources if they're a bit later. And then maybe 3 or 4 days of speed ups. They're quite cheap. They give you a lot of power, actually. Like this is 400k power, and it's like 1/5 the speed ups of a military technology. So all of these technologies are really cheap, really easy to upgrade, and you probably shouldn't be worrying too much here. There are some notable things if you somehow don't have them. I would take my masonry up before I upgrade all my buildings. I'll take all my writing to max. I'd certainly be taking my engineering to max. It's a lot of building speed. And I'd also certainly be taking my mathematics to max. That's a lot of research speed. So having those technologies certainly max before you go too hard in on T5 is 100% something you should do. The rest of the technology here, for the most part, is just gathering speed. Now, I do certainly recommend it. Gathering speed is important, but it's not the end of the world if you don't focus down on it. I only took my economic technology up once I ran out of military technology stuff. Some technologies that don't really matter here. Of course, carriage doesn't really matter, so if you're going to do this in the most efficient and count-effective way as possible, I'm assuming you're not going to be researching spam economic technology. You're probably going to let some upgrade on its own. So carriage isn't too important. Cutting and polishing isn't too important, but cutting and polishing is required to level 10. However, if you're going to do that, I recommend doing it last because it's not that important. Also, I think that not the gathering speeds, the production isn't as important, but I still think it's quite good. Compared to like other things, I think gathering speed is certainly more important than production. Now, military technology is really where the bulk of your technology comes in. I'm sure that by now you have tier 4 units, and if you don't, you probably should go check out my other guide because that's going to be more relevant to you. But you may know now that you've got tier 4, I'm presuming that you're probably either an early tier 4 player or a late tier 4 player. If you've had tier 4 for like a really short period of time, then you're probably going to start working on these technologies here, and then working on these technologies, all depending on like what type of troops you're going to go for. Now, up until about camouflage, all the technology is extremely cheap. Like this is probably 3 or 4 days of speed ups for each one of these, so maybe 12 days there. These are like a day of speed ups, these are like a day of speed ups, and these are like maybe a day of speed ups as well. So getting that technology up is really easy. Here's where it gets really annoying. This is probably about 500 days of speed ups. These technologies here are about 200 days of speed ups just for these two, and then if you're doing them all, it would be over 1,000. And these here are another about 500-ish days of speed ups. So what do you decide on when you're upgrading these? Well, of course, you're going to have to do all the prerequisites to get these to all level 10. And to get some of these up, you need to have these at max. So these technologies back here. And these also need some of those other technologies maxed. So I think when you're doing this, first you focus on herbal medicine, get that as high as you can because health is really important. And defensive formations you could do after. And then I would do combat tactics towards the end. I think that it's really valuable to do them in that order and try focus them down in that order. I can't really remember off the top of my head the prerequisites for all the technologies, but I don't remember them being too bad, so trying to get these to level 10 as soon as possible is probably your best bet before going in and getting these up. You also probably want to work on these technologies, whichever troop you're choosing. So if let's say I'm doing infantry, I'd work on Watt Steel and the Scutum while I'm working on these as well. So whenever I know I won't have enough resources to keep upgrading this, because I assure you they're quite expensive and they're more of a middle game upgrade, I will decide to go and do one of these upgrades because for the most part they're cheaper. You can see this is still expensive though, 39 days of speed ups, 40-ish million resources here. However, these technologies do provide you a lot of benefits after you've unlocked tier 4, purely because you're going to be benefiting all your troops at this point, and of course the troop that you choose to unlock first. Now in terms of getting these technologies up, to max these you do need some of the economic tech maxed. So you're going to have to max cutting and polishing once you get towards this area of the research tree. The easiest one's bodkin arrows or like the attack equivalent. And then it's a bit more annoying to do the defensive one. I think you need to max something here. I think it's encampment. And then obviously the hardest thing here is to get medical corps, which is the best one because it gives you health. Because you're going to have to max encampment and max combined arms, which both are about 110 days worth of speed ups for their final upgrade only. And now obviously medical corps is super powerful but harder to get. And once you get medical corps, then you have access to your tier 5 troops. Now, one more thing to note is if you're pushing for tier 5 tech, especially the later tech, or like the earlier tech, like this level 10 stuff here, like combat tactics, defensive formation, herbal medicine, make sure you 100% have your alliance center to 25. You don't need it at 25 to unlock the upgrades, but I think you should have it at 25 because you're going to save, not even joking, probably about 20 to 30 days of speed ups by just upgrading at that extra level. Well, not even 20 days, maybe like 10, 15 days, but that's still a lot of speed ups to be saving here. So it's certainly worth getting the last level on the Alliance Center. I'm also sure at this point you're in an Alliance, so if you're in an Alliance, make sure you're requesting help and letting your help get to max. You can see I'm upgrading my state form. I'm not going to speed up the state form unless my helps are at max. Saved me 14 hours. Also, you want to make sure that if you're in an Alliance, they have access to the Research altar, which is here, the Wisdom altar. Certainly very good to have access to this. It gives you some free research speed. And if you're pushing T5, I presume you're much closer to the end game. Or if not, you are in the end game and your kingdom has obviously got the Lost Temple. So make sure you do request yourself the Scientist title, because without the Scientist title, you are wasting some research speed ups. Also, if you are going to be doing major upgrades, like upgrading one of those technologies I mentioned before, the really strong ones to level 10 or even level 9, you definitely want a research rune, because they're going to give you up to 15% more research speed. Preferably, you wait for the 15% speed, because, it's actually a very big difference between 10 and 5%. So getting to that 15% is certainly worth it, and I do recommend it for almost everyone. So make sure you're doing that. In terms of civilizations, you probably don't need to worry too much, unless you're doing a major push, like you're going from almost no technology to T5. Then you could consider Korea, but otherwise it doesn't really matter. Just go with whatever civilization you have at the moment. Alright, so now if you did enjoy this video, and if I gave you a lot of value when you're trying to push for T5, I only have one request. Please join my Discord server. Joining the Discord supports the channel and allows you to connect with the fellow community so we can make a strong, powerful Rise of Kingdoms community. I do thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.